We're good to go?
To break today at Deputy Jackson.
3:45.
Can't squeeze 4 o'clock? You sure? Positive. Even if I call? Even if Deirdre calls?
Dr. Readers?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Dr. Readers, it is true, sir, isn't it, that there is no known study that documents precisely how much EDTA would be present in a normal and healthy person's blood on an average. Isn't that correct?
On an average of how many people? The number of patients in the Foreman and Trujillo study on the whole had less than a couple of parts per billion.
No, doctor. First of all, in that article, it says nothing about parts per billion. Isn't that correct?
It doesn't
Isn't that
say
correct?
parts per billion, but it shows you it's less than parts per billion. With the strength of the radioactivity used, the detection limit is a couple of parts per billion, and they have negative bloods.
Doctor, that is not my question. Could you listen to my question, please? To your knowledge, is there any study in which they take the blood of normal, healthy people and test it for amounts of EDTA present? In other words, what would be present in an average person on an average day? Is there any such study?
A study with that title, I don't know of any in the literature. Blood EDTA determinations have been done in the course of other studies I've seen and none found, but they were not designed to do what you ask.
So
A large number of people and averages and all that, no.
There is no known study that indicates how much EDTA you could expect to find on the average in an average person, correct?
None that I know of.
But in fact, when Agent Martz's blood was tested, a low level of what you call EDTA was indeed found. Isn't that correct?
I don't think that that is necessarily correct. What was found is that the sample that he finally analyzed showed the presence of some EDTA in the parts per million range. I cannot conceive that that is what's in his blood, in his circulating blood.
Nevertheless, doctor, you found what you would call EDTA in the parts per million in Agent Martz's unpreserved blood, correct?
No, incorrect. Absolutely untrue. I didn't find anything. He presented data which show that when he analyzed a sample of his un-EDTA'd blood, that in the process he ended up with a result that showed the presence of EDTA on the instrument. It doesn't prove that he had it in his blood, but what it does show, if he had it in his blood, he'd be an extraordinarily amazing, unusual person at that level.
Well, doctor, if other people's blood was tested, and I mean unpreserved blood, that gave the same results as did Agent Martz's blood, would that change your opinion any as to whether or not he was a highly unusual individual?
Objection. Assumes facts, not evidence. Overruled.
I didn't say he is a highly unusual individual. I have not seen the validation of those studies, so I can't tell you whether the analysis is correct. If you ask me to assume that an accurate, reliable analysis of blood from Agent Marx and from others showed the kind of pattern that I saw in the material that he submitted to me, then I would say, yes, these specimens, under those conditions, what I see here, in my opinion, is EDTA.
Doctor, you saw the test results for Agent Martz's own blood, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
And those results do seem to indicate, do they not? EDTA.
No idea.
Doctor, you are familiar with the term endogenous substances, are you not?
Oh, sure.
And that means that we have in our body certain low levels of chemicals which, if given to us in very high doses, would kill us, correct?
No, no. Endogenous substance is any substance which is normally present in a organism or body. It doesn't say anything about how much. We have a lot of iron in our body. We have a lot of histamine, which sometimes kills us. So these are endogenous substances. Now, we also have substances in our body which come from the outside, but which everybody has in them. Just about everybody has a little bit of nicotine in them. It's not made by the body. It's from the environmental nicotine and other things. But endogenous substances are those that are generated by the body and not the traces of other things that get into it from the outside.
Okay. And those endogenous substances have certain normal levels in our bodies, do they not? Levels that we can live with, correct?
Well, that holds for everything. There are levels we can live with anything.
All right.
Sure.
I'm talking about the ones that naturally occur in our bodies.
Yeah.
All right. And then there are, for example, cyanide. Isn't there a certain level of cyanide that we all live with on a daily basis?
We don't live with it. We make it. Without it, we wouldn't have any vitamin B12 in our body.
Right. And if
Cyanide is produced and destroyed by the body on a regular basis. It's a normal biological endogenous substance at very low levels, yes.
yeah. And yet, if administered in high doses, it will kill you, correct? Cyanide poisoning.
Sure, anything will.
And what about ethyl alcohol, doctor? Don't we all have a certain low level of alcohol in our bodies at all times? Whether we drink or not?
Yeah, that is something which the toxicologists have been kicking back and forth for nary 100 years. And it still is disputed by some that it is not present, but it's formed in the course of the analysis. So a true ethyl alcohol, I'd suspect that there is a little bit there, sure.
Naturally. And if you drink alcohol, you will become inebriated, correct?
You will. I won't. I won't drink that much.
Assuming anyone drinks a great deal,
A
doctor.
great deal, sure.
They will become inebriated.
Of course.
You would, and I would, correct?
Oh, yes, eventually if I drank enough.
And if you drink enough, it will kill you. Isn't that correct?
If you drink too much, it'll kill you, yes. It can, and it often does.
Now, as opposed to that, there are subjects or items that we ingest on a daily basis, correct?
Yes,
And some of those items will enter our bloodstream. Isn't that correct?
yes.
Excuse me, doctor, why don't you hold the microphone just a little closer, please? Great, perfect, thank you, sir.
Now, you testified earlier today, sir.
I was talking
that
about you in the
EPA
last stream, but
for
only
food, correct?
briefly, Michael. Just briefly.
Not so much
Someone
a
said
preservative
Missouri.
as a substance to
Isn't that the
safekeep
show me
color of
state?
food, flavor of food, some degree of preservation. But most of
Is that Missouri? The Show Me State? That is Missouri, right? Michael lives in the Show Me State, which means he don't trust none of y'all. He don't trust none of y'all. You say something, you better prove it. Bring your receipts.
its uses in food are for aesthetic purposes.
Now, you discussed this subject with Agent Martz about a week ago. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
And when you discussed it with him initially, you did not know EDTA was still being used in food, did you?
Well, it's not that I didn't know that it was still being used in food, but that the latest thing that I read was that the only authorized deliberate addition to food or the only authorized addition to food is an incidental addition which occurs when adhesives, such as labels, are used that have EDTA in them. And I said, they have taken EDTA totally out of the food. And then Agent Martz showed me something that's from, I think, 93. I'm not sure. That means the actual regulation is from 1993, which gave a list of substances. As a matter of fact, I told him I think it's still used in pickles. But apparently it's used in a lot of other things. At least it was at the time at which that regulation was made.
I have here, been shown to counsel. It's a document issued by the Food and Drug Administration. I'm going to ask that it be marked as People's 359? 539. Keep doing this. 539.
This is an FDA article?
Yes, Your Honor. Actually, it's a regulation by FDA. Actually, I'm going to put it on the Elmo. Oh, Your Honor, before I forget, can I mark what we were formerly looking at on the screen? People's, I'm afraid to guess, 540?
And that was what
The chart, Your Honor, that we printed out.
part?
All right, People's 539. Do you recognize what I'm showing you here, sir?
I can't read it on my monitor. It's too...
Do you
Blurry?
have an extra copy to show the doctors?
I could read it to you, sir. Title 21, Food and Drugs, Food and Drug Administration, Department of Health and Services. Subchapter B, food for human consumption. Food additives permitted for direct addition to food for human consumption. Subpart B, food preservatives. Do you recall reading this, sir?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to drop down to the list. And do you recognize seeing the items listed here?
Yes. Yes.
And these are items in which there's a certain maximum level of EDTA permitted.
Yes.
All right. And you have things such as canned carbonated soft drinks,
Yes.
and you have, move down, French dressing and mayonnaise at the bottom of the list, sir.
Yes.
And you have dressings non-standardized in the middle there.
I was going to wear my
The number
sideburns like
75
that
after
today,
it.
but
Yes.
I didn't want
Okay.
to clash.
And on this page, if you drop down,
What's in his
you see
pocket?
mayonnaise,
What is
salad
that
dressing, and
black
sandwich
stuff?
spread there.
What is that?
I can see the names, but I
But not
don't
the
see the
numbers.
PPMs.
Can you move it over so you can see
Is
that?
that-
Right, okay.
I don't
Yes.
know, what
And that
is
shows how many parts per million are allowed as a maximum in those items, correct?
Yes.
I don't think you can oversleep if you're retired. I don't think that's possible. You just wake up when you wake up.
And on this, it has dressings, non-standardized French dressing, and frozen white potatoes, including cut potatoes. Do you see that item, sir?
Yes.
Like French fries?
Do I like French?
No, is that... Look,
I don't know whether it's French fries. Cut potatoes could be cubes or anything. It may be. You mean whether it's cut into strips?
Right,
I
frozen?
I don't know.
they have frozen white potatoes, including cut potatoes. Does that seem to refer to what could be French fries, sir?
Could be. I'm not an expert. I really don't know.
All right, and we have here mayonnaise, salad dressing, sandwich spread, and sauces.
Right.
Whole lot of things there. And ready-to-eat cereal products.
Right.
All right, so people can potentially be eating EDTA every day.
Probably they are, and I know they have been for many years. I thought it was taken out of the food for some reason. I haven't followed that story, but that was my impression from what I saw in one of the National Library of Medicine publications.
And are you aware that it has been estimated that people ingest as much as 50 milligrams a day of EDTA in the food we eat?
Well, let's see now. It could be even more than that. I think that the maximum allowable amount is something like 2.5 milligrams per kilogram.
We haven't even
If I'm
got
not
stabbed by
mistaken.
OJ
So
for
even
it.
more than that would not surprise
Well, let's
you.
say 50. All right, I'll agree with you. Yes, there are people who eat 50 milligrams a day.
Okay, and that would not be unusual.
I have no idea
All
whether
right.
it would be unusual or not.
Well, Dr.
I don't know
Not-
where on the curve it is. I don't know.
Not all of the EDTA that we ingest is going to completely pass out of the body, correct? Some is going to go into the blood.
Well, it'll go about no more than 5% is absorbed of EDTA from the gut of a dose. And as soon as it's excreted more rapidly than absorbed, because about 70% is excreted in 1 hour. But up to 5% of a substance is absorbed from the gut, from its gastrointestinal contents, over a period of time of something like, I think, 2 or 3 days. If you
Now-
swallow something. By the time it works its way through, there's, a total of about no more than 5% absorbed.
All right. Now, we don't have any studies that tell us precisely how much, on an average basis, a normal person has in his blood on any given day, correct?
I think
No.
we asked that question now
It's
about 5 times.
foundational, Your Honor. Do you recall agreeing with that, Doctor, earlier?
There has been, I know of no study, not that we don't have any, I know of no study that did a large number of people to get that figure, no.
And we do know that everybody eats foods that probably contain EDTA on a daily basis.
Probably, yeah.
Now, given all of those facts, sir, it would not be surprising if some level of EDTA were to be found in a normal person's blood, such as Agent Mars, correct?
I'm sure I'm reasonably sure there's a little bit there, but minute traces only.
I have a chart, Your Honor. I'd ask you to mark People's 541.
541.
Showing you this chart, sir. You could, can you get the burn out? Have you seen this before?
I think you need to back out just a little for the...
I can't read it on my monitor.
Okay, let me help you, because the writing is
But
small.
maybe you can tell me from the left.
Yes, from the
1,
left.
2, 3, 4. What's the one next to the big piece? What does it say on that?
Let me read them all to you, sir. Let's start from left to right as you face it. All right?
Yes, sure.
K65C.
I can read it. If you
All right.
enlarge it that much, I can read it perfectly.
All right.
Keep moving it to the left.
K65C is the dress that
Right.
Nicole was wearing.
Right.
That shows some amount of EDTA, correct?
An amount, yes. The
All right.
swatch that was analyzed had an amount of EDTA.
And that certain amount of EDTA, would you agree would be attributable to the manufacturing process in which they added it for some...
I don't know what it's due to, whether it's detergent manufacturing or what. I just don't know. But it could be from any number of sources. Fabric can contain EDTA from the laundry, from the manufacturing, and from other sources too. Mayonnaise.
All right, and now the next entry, K65, the dress, that is the swatch containing Nicole Brown's blood. And you just testified, sir, that that was substantially higher than the measurement of the cloth of her dress that did not have her blood on it.
The picture makes it substantially higher. You can see that the riser is substantially higher on the 65 than on the 65C, enough so that you can tell the difference with the naked eye without measuring.
Would it be your testimony, sir, that the interpretation of that greater amount shown for the portion of her dress that has her blood on it is that the blood that has been typed as Nicole Brown's blood on her own dress is her preserved blood?
No, I wouldn't say that, because remember that the way these analyses were done, you really have no idea of how much sample you have to start with. So you might have twice as much on the K65 to start with blood that you actually start pushing through the machine than you have in the K65C. So all I said is that this one's more than this in quantity. I don't think you can say anything about concentration because you don't know how much blood was used to start with for the analysis. There's no way of telling.
Let's pull it out, show the whole chart. All right, after the two dress items, you have the gate, the sock, and Agent Martz's own unpreserved blood.
That's
You
correct.
see those?
Mm-hmm.
Then the two big blocks on the right-hand side of the screen as you face it are the reference blood samples of the defendant and Nicole Brown. You're aware of that?
I knew it was one, the other, or both. I didn't know which one. But all I knew is this is EDTA blood. You know, that's an actual lavender top 2 blood.
Now, sir, I understood what you said about the difference in concentration that may apply concerning Agent Martz's method of cutting the samples in this testing that he did. Bearing that in mind, is it your testimony, sir? We'll strike that. Would you agree, would you not, sir, that looking at this chart, the difference between the level of EDTA shown in the reference bloods and all the others, Agent Martz's and all the evidence blood, is very dramatic?
Yes, the quantities shown are very dramatically different, as much as what? Can you move it a little to the right so I can see the numbers along the ordinate, along up and down?
Sure.
9. That's all right.
No, back out.
That's fine.
Wouldn't you agree, sir, that the reference samples are at least 100 times higher than the evidence samples?
Then some of them, yes, not 100 times higher than the dress, but probably about 100 times more. Not, higher makes smacks of concentration, but they are more. There's a lot more in the reference sample, in the big ones, than down there, and it's probably around 100-fold difference, sure.
Okay, 100 times. Then, sir, are you aware that the cuttings used for this testing by Agent Martz were at the largest 2 millimeters square? Are you aware of that?
Yes, I know that, sure. I know what, I think it was 2 times 2, something like that.
Now, you described a dilution method that you would have used with ammonia to determine exactly how much blood was present in any given swatch. Have you ever done that?
Sure.
For as small as a 2 millimeter square?
Yes.
And you would have recommended he do that here?
I don't recommend. That's what I would do. As I would determine, get a good estimate, spectrophotometric estimate. In this case, I would not go for iron and the other things because that would take up sample. But I could take that little swatch into 25 microliters of slightly ammoniated blood and shake it for several hours or whatever.
You
then
can shake
transfer
it for
to another vial
hours?
and do the same thing.
Come on.
And then the first thing I would do is to take each one of the recovered fluids, put it in a spectrophotometric microcell, and obtain a spectrum which goes through the ultraviolet, the so-called Sorey band, to where hemoglobin or hematine absorb, and get an estimate against standards of how much hemoglobin is there in that 25 microliters, how much hemoglobin is in the second 25 microliters, and perhaps a third and a fourth. Keep washing till it's negative. If there's so little that I say, gee whiz, I may be able to do my analysis, but I'd have to use all of that. So I'd bring it all back together and concentrate it, which is fairly simple. You simply freeze dry it, and then take the whole thing up in an amount that I need to inject and inject it. And then I would know that I started out with so many micrograms or milligrams of hemoglobin or of blood protein, and I'm getting a picture, and then I can talk about concentration. Now that little square, that could be any amount of blood that's on there, anything from a nanogram to a microgram, maybe even a milligram, I don't know. But the point is that there's nowhere, anything that gives me even an idea of how big the sample is. And if this is 2 drops, the EDTA blood, which is 2 drops is about 50 microliters, and if that swatch down there gives me, instead of 50 microliters of blood, gives me
Excuse me,
a
Doctor.
nanoliter of blood, then, of course you find less.
I hate to interrupt, but this has gotten very non-responsive. Let me ask you another question.
Sustain.
Doctor, assume for a moment the following hypothetical. That Agent Marks made an effort in all cases to use a larger amount of sample of the evidence stains than of the reference stains. And that in each and every case when he made a cutting, he made the cuttings of the evidence larger than the cuttings of the reference sample. And by that I mean not just a big piece of cloth, but more blood in each and every case.
I beg your pardon, I thought that you mean the reference stain that he created? What do you mean by reference stain?
Dr. Readers, assume for a moment that Agent Marks took a larger area of blood for the reference stain than he did for any of the swatches created from the reference sample for his testing as to each and every evidence stain. Do you understand
No,
what I'm saying?
I don't. I honestly don't understand what you're saying.
That's not in evidence. I think that was done.
I want you to assume as a hypothetical that Agent Marks followed the following procedure. That he took the evidence of the sock and a swatch of the gate stain, and with respect to every time he tested evidence versus reference, he made sure that the evidence stains were larger than the reference stains in order to compensate for any imprecision.
I still don't understand. What do you mean
I'm not-
reference stain?
I'm talking about blood from the EDTA tube, Doctor.
He took more blood, more sample, more OJ blood, sock blood from the sock stain than he took EDTA blood out of the tube.
Correct.
How does he know that?
Doctor-
He doesn't know how much blood there was on the sock sample that he took.
Doctor, I'm asking you to assume the hypothetical. I'm not done. Okay? Assume that he cut a larger evidence stain from the
Right.
sock and from the gate stain than he did from the swatch created for the evidence samples. for
Okay,
the reference
now I
samples,
understand.
All right?
Okay, I can
That's your
see. Yeah,
hypothetical.
yeah.
Given that fact, to the extent that there would be any discrepancy in the concentration amounts between the evidence stains and the reference stains, aren't those small discrepancies more than accounted for by the dramatic differences between the amount shown in the reference samples and the amount shown in the evidence stains?
No, because all he did, he cut an area out of the sock, and he doesn't give a clue of how much blood was in there. He took a swatch that had been wiped on the gate, and he cut a piece out, and he doesn't have a clue how much blood there is in that, what he cut out. He has not measured it. He doesn't have a clue whether it's a microliter, a nanoliter, or what.
Doctor, these are 2 millimeter squares, are they not?
Right.
And the differences between the reference sample and the evidence samples are 100 times as great. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
And it is your testimony, then, you're telling us that whatever discrepancies in concentration may exist by a small difference in the size of the cuttings or the concentration is not well compensated for in the amount, the dramatic difference between the amounts in the reference and the evidence stains?
You have, no, it isn't, because you don't have a clue of how much blood is on that sample square of 2 square millimeters. You just don't know. You haven't made any measurements. You extract it, you get a little bit of blood out. That may represent a microliter, a nanoliter. I don't know how much it represents. There's nothing that tells me what it does, what it is. You can't go by the area because one is a swab And the other one is you don't know how many drops of blood or what sock or fell on that sock or whatever you had.
Well, doctor, how do you account for the readings that came up from Agent Martz's blood? How do you account for the fact that his
Nanogram.
blood, unpreserved, gave the readings that it did, consistent with EDTA?
Well, I don't account for it. I think he would have to account for it because I think it's absurd to find that much EDTA in normal blood. Even if all I can say it's in the part per million range. It just seems totally absurd to me.
And so you
Just
reject
like
it.
that, just like that 2,000 parts per million, you'd be dead. I mean, you know, these are absurd numbers.
So given the fact that we have a test result from someone's unpreserved blood that shows a presence of EDTA in the parts per million, your answer, the way in which you account for that, is to say it's absurd. You dismiss it.
I give you a scenario how that can happen very easily. May I? May I, Your
Dr.
Honor?
Reeders, could you answer my question first, please?
Question. I object. I think he's entitled to answer the question that she asked. That's proposing an answer, not to a question. Ask a question.
Can you answer the question I have asked, doctor?
Would you repeat it?
Is it your answer that the results obtained by testing Agent Martz's blood showing EDTA in the range of parts per million, very similar to the range shown on the gate and the sock, correct?
Very similar.
Very similar. That your answer to that is it is absurd and you dismiss it. Is that correct?
Yes, and I'll give you a reasonable probability of how that can happen. Not that it did,
No.
but I'll give you a reasonable
Then, doctor,
probability.
I would like for you, that's non-responsive.
He's allowed to
It is-
explain his
no.
answer. He is, you can ask him the question, not in that manner. Proceed.
Now, doctor, isn't it true, sir, that you cannot tell us that the substance detected by you in the gate and the sock and not by you, excuse me, by the testing done by Agent Martz, as you interpret it,
Nano
you cannot tell us, sir, that that substance is EDTA to the exclusion of all other substances, correct?
You never can say, no, I can't, and I can't say that for any analysis that you present me, even the Nobel Prize winning ones.
Then given considering the EDTA results that Agent Martz got on his unpreserved blood, sir, is it your opinion that the bloodstains on the sock and the gate had to have come from the preserved blood to the exclusion of all other sources?
I didn't say that. I said that it's sort of like you hear hoofbeats, it's probably horses and not zebras, is that the most likely source for EDTA in a blood sample, when you have a control that is negative, is that it was EDTA blood to begin with. That's what I said. So it could be. I didn't say it was. I said it could reasonably be considered that, and it doesn't exclude other possibilities, but I don't know what they are.
You don't know what they would be.
No, I do not. I deny that there's any reasonable probability that it could be from food or from the normal level of EDTA in the blood of a person.
Even though you also realize that there is no study indicating what that normal level would be.
Yes, there is, but it is not a study which was designed to determine the normal level in the world's population, like has been done with blood typing and with other things. But from the study, that is
No,
a very good
objection,
study.
Your Honor. I'm sorry, that's non-responsive.
No, he can finish the answer.
May I finish?
You may.
From the study, that is an excellent study that the authors can be proud of. On the number of people that they tested, they didn't find any EDTA. I don't see any reason why they should find it now.
Except that it was found. Isn't that correct in Agent Martz's blood?
Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. Raise the question.
All right, doctor, let me ask you something. You're familiar with the case of a defendant by the name of Sconce, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And you were, in that case, sir, retained by the Ventura County District Attorney's Office, were you not?
I thought it was the Los Angeles County District Attorney, Mr. Giss. Wasn't he from here?
Dr. Reeders, can you answer my question?
As far as I recall, it was Los Angeles County.
Do you recall working with a district attorney by the name of Denos?
No, Giss is the one that I remember.
And you remember that Mr. Giss was a member of the District Attorney's Office of Los Angeles County, correct?
That's my recollection.
And do you recall testifying in a courthouse in Ventura County?
Yeah, that's right.
And in that case, sir, you were told that there was a question as to whether the decedent had been murdered by the means of oleandrin poisoning, correct?
Oleander or oleandrin, yes.
And was it your understanding at the time, sir, that no one had been charged with the murder pending your determination as to whether or not the victim had been poisoned to death?
Objection. Sustained.
Was it your determination, sir, that was sought as to whether or not the victim in that case had been poisoned to death?
My corroborative determination, the initial work was done by Dr. Baselt in San Francisco. Or negating determination. He asked that I should do that, yeah.
And you were asked to analyze certain substances removed from the body of a decedent to determine whether there was present in those substances oleandrin, a poison.
Yes, fresh autopsy specimens by Dr. Lovell, who was the
And you-
pathologist who did the autopsy.
And you recall conducting certain tests on those tissues, correct?
Sure, yes.
And as a result of your findings and based on your findings, isn't it true that you determined that there was oleandrin present?
Oleandrin and oleandrogenin both were present.
And you reported those results to the district attorney, correct?
Yes,
And you appeared in court to testify concerning your finding that there was evidence of oleandrin or oleander poisoning as a cause of death, correct?
yes, by the best then available methods, which were pretty good, I thought.
And those methods that you refer to, sir, were the tests of thin layer chromatography,
Correct?
fluorescent spectrophotometry,
Yes,
and radioimmunoassay, correct?
that's correct.
All right, guys.
And
I'll
as
be
a result
back.
of all of that, you testified in the
Behave.
preliminary hearing for murder in
Hopefully
that case
there's no
that the thin layer
sidebars,
chromatography test
but sounds
gave you
like there might be.
results that were consistent with and corroborative of the results obtained by another, Dr. Basel, whom you referred to here, which show the presence of a substance with all the characteristics of oleandrin and not the characteristics of many, many other substances. Do you recall giving such testimony, sir?
The words no, but the content, yes.
And if I were to read those words to you from the transcript, sir, would it refresh your memory as to whether or not those were the words you used?
More so than just a quote from them, yes.
Mark, you give Mr. Glazier a reference?
Yes, I do. Sir, I'm showing you page 828 of the preliminary hearing. I ask you to read to yourself and tell us whether the words that I've just read are in fact the words you stated under testimony, under oath, in Ventura County.
Well, Miss Clark, I don't remember the words you said, but if you allow me to read it out loud, then I'll agree that that is what I said and is in the transcript.
Please
Is that
do.
all right?
That's fine.
Consistent with the thin layer chromatography gave results which were consistent with and corroborative of the results that Dr. Basel had obtained, showing the presence of a substance with all the characteristics of oleandrin and not the characteristics of many, many other substances. That's what it says, and that's, I said that, yes, I agree that those are my words.
In essence, doctor, then what that test gave you is that the result it gave you, as you testified, was a pattern or result showing all the characteristics, in your opinion, of oleandrin, correct?
In the thin layer.
In
It
the
also
thin layer.
did in the other tests, but this statement deals only with the thin layer. I did other tests, as you well know.
All right, yes, I do. But that pattern that you found characteristic for oleandrin could have been shared by many, many other compounds, correct?
I don't think so. May I explain?
Why don't we ask another question, sir? To your,
I don't think so. That sounds like a complete answer. All right, please.
Thin layer chromatography is a separation
I
of...
thought, Your Honor, the
Did you say
I'm
yes?
I'm allowing him to explain his answer.
Thin layer chromatography is an analysis on a glass plate that has a thin layer of gypsum or some other material on it. You put the material on the bottom on a square plate, and then just as if you had to put a dot on your handkerchief and then put the edge into water or some solvent, the solvent goes up by capillary action, and in the process separates substances from each other and forms kind of a ladder of things. You know, start out with a streak and it moves and it separates them.
Yes.
You then spray that with various, you look at it under ultraviolet light for fluorescence.
Doctor, explaining what thin layer chromatography is, I don't think is responsive. Next question.
Thank you, Your Honor. The second test you did was fluorescent spectrophotometry,
That's
correct?
correct.
And in that case as well, you testified that the pattern you obtained was consistent with and corroborative of oleandrin, correct?
Yes.
Now, based on those two tests alone, at the preliminary hearing, you testified that those results were sufficient, in conjunction with what you knew of the other facts in the case, not related to the science, to state that your results were consistent with and corroborative of the presence of oleandrin, correct?
That's misleading. I said there was another test, and that was the radioimmunoassay test which was done on it.
That's correct, but didn't you testify, Dr. Readers, that those 2 tests alone were sufficient for you to form your conclusion?
I don't recall that at all.
I'm going to show you page 829, sir, and ask you to read it out loud. I'm sorry. I have one thing brought down from Mr. Blakey.
May I go back just to read the whole thing?
And the beginning of that section, sir, begins with what we've already discussed, which was the results you obtained on the thin layer chromatography test, correct?
That's on this page. Is that
Yes, that's just before, and then it goes over to
Okay,
page 829, doesn't it?
right?
And do you
Now,
recall?
let me please.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I said. Let me read it.
Please do.
And also fluorescence pattern, which were consistent with that and corroborative of oleandrin, so thin layer and fluorescence spectrophotometry. In my opinion,
Wait, and you skipped the words, doctor.
and these two together, in my opinion, were really enough in conjunction with the history, particularly to corroborate the findings of oleandrin in this case.
Then you did so testify, as I've already indicated. Is that correct?
I testified that these 2 findings were really enough in conjunction with the history to call this an oleandrin poisoning case.
They were really enough, but you would agree, would you not, sir, that those findings may also have been consistent with other compounds?
I couldn't think of any, I couldn't find any. The pattern and thin layer and the color reactions are very characteristic of oleandrin and oleandrogenin, especially since you have both there.
All right. And then you did a 3rd test called the radioimmunoassay test, correct?
That's correct.
And you basically corroborated again the presence of oleandrin with that test. Is that correct, sir?
In conjunction with the other tests, yes. And with the history, yes.
All right. And in essence, then, what you said was that you had patterns with each of these 3 tests consistent with oleandrin, correct?
Yes.
And those results caused you to conclude, sir, to a high degree of scientific certainty that this was, in fact, oleandrin.
And oleandrogenin, the 2 components of oleander
And
poisoning. I mean, oleandrogenin is really the thing that you get when oleandrin breaks down a little bit. Not much, but cracks into 2 parts.
And those results, as you testified at the preliminary hearing, sir, do you recall testifying the chances that a substance has all the properties in all 3 tests in common and is in actuality another substance from experience are so extremely remote that one then has a very high degree of scientific certainty that if one says that this is oleandrin, in fact it is.
That's what I said, yes.
100% never. For 100% you go to the seminary because that depends on faith. Science is never 100%. It is statistical and it is reasonably certain the chances are remote. And if you want to go over into the area of, in that area, the hand of Almighty God can make anything happen, so possibilities, of course, are there. But it's a high degree of reasonable scientific certainty, and the operative word is reasonable. A scientist goes by reason and not by feeling. Do you recall giving that testimony, sir?
Yes.
Now, doctor, you are familiar with a man by the name of Dr. Jack Henyon, correct?
Yes.
And Dr. Henyon became involved with the sconce case after you testified at the preliminary hearing, as I've just indicated, correct?
I think 5 years later, yes.
It's your testimony that Dr. Henyon became involved with the case 5 years after you testified?
It was several years. I think it was 5 years.
Doctor,
Characterizes what he said. It's 5 years after he got involved. He's clarified.
do you believe that Dr. Henyon got involved 5 years after you testified or 5 years after you got involved with the case?
I know it. No, I'm sorry. What I was referring to is from the time that I performed the analyses.
And Dr. Henyon is a professor of toxicology at Cornell University, correct?
I don't know whether he's a professor of toxicology or whether he's still at Cornell. He has a private lab now, but he was a professor, I think, of veterinary toxicology and head of the veterinary toxicology laboratory that dealt along those lines with racehorses mainly, yes.
But-
I know him quite well.
Now, doctor, you have a PhD in philosophy, correct?
No, I don't have a PhD in philosophy. I have a Doctor of Philosophy degree, which is a PhD in pharmacology and toxicology with minors in pathology and physiology. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in chemistry.
All right. And Dr. Henyon has a PhD in analytical organic chemistry. Are you
I
aware of
have
that?
no idea what his CV is. I've never looked at it.
Now, he obtained a split of the tissue that you tested in the sconce case, correct?
That is incorrect. If you will check, what Dr. Henyon obtained is a specimen from the not exhumed body, but from the body of the deceased. I can't think of his name at the moment. That was in a mausoleum, sitting there exposed to the air, essentially, for several years. I offered specimens which I had received from the autopsy and that were frozen, deep freeze. I showed them to the lawyer, and they were rejected. He had the pathologist extern the body, instead of taking it out and cut a piece of tissue, which of course by then was kind of dry, 5 years old and decomposed, and that is what he analyzed. His report says so.
So it's your testimony, sir, that he analyzed different tissue than you did. Is that your
Totally
testimony?
different, from the same body, but totally different tissue.
But the test that he ran on the same victim that you ran your tests on revealed that the oleandrin you found was not present. Isn't
No,
that correct?
Absolutely, that's misleading. No, it was not.
Isn't it true, Dr. Readers, that Dr. Henyon ran tests on the tissue he received from the body of the same victim, and that he determined using his tests that were more sophisticated than yours, that oleandrin was not present? Isn't that true?
Your Honor, object. This is not proper impeachment. They're two different tissue samples.
It's the same. Compound question. All right, counsel, at this point, we're going to take our recess for the afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember all of my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions about the case, don't conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you, and don't allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. As far as the jury is concerned, we'll stand in recess. Simpson matter, defendants again present before the court with his counsel, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Scheck, Mr. Blazer, people represented by Ms. Clark, Mr. Harmon, and Ms. Kahn. Jury is not present. Counsel, anything we need to take up before we proceed to Mr. Martz? Ms. Clark? Certainly. We're going to launch into motions today at 4 o'clock and see how far we get. And today we have another early ending time at 4 o'clock. So take up some motions and see if we can get some of that extraneous stuff out of the way. And tomorrow's schedule, we will not convene until 1:30 on Wednesday. Yes, sir. Yes.
The issue that you would put on the back burner about the RFLP testing being conducted by the Department of Justice on the combined stains from the console of the Bronco.
I'm trying to recollect.
That was the one where they asked for permission to combine all the stains, then they waited for a month and a half, 2 months, and you said, I don't have to reach that issue because we don't have any results yet. I was informed that they've completed 2 probes and they might call one of them. And I'm going to get some pictures maybe back in my hotel today, and I've discussed a little bit with Mr. Harmon, but I think that we just have to schedule a time to hear that sometime before the end of the week, since we need to know what the court's ruling is going to be on whether they can introduce that, so then we can structure how these defense witnesses can testify.
All right. All right, Deputy McNair, let's have the jurors, please. And counsel will start. The court will explain that Dr. Readers had a medical appointment was it Philadelphia? Philadelphia, and that he'll be returned to complete cross-examination on Friday. Right. Jury panel, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get started, I just needed to explain to you that Dr. Frederick Readers, who was undergoing cross-examination by Ms. Clark at the conclusion of the day yesterday, had a medical appointment back in his hometown of Philadelphia, and he has returned back east for that purpose and will be back here on Friday morning to complete his testimony for you. So we're going to present some other witnesses to you in the interim so we can use the court time, but you should just know that we will conclude Dr. Reader's testimony on Friday. We'll start early on that date at 8 a.m., and we'll be concluding early on Friday at 11 o'clock in the morning. All right, and Mr. Blazer, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. We call Roger Martz.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the class not pending before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat in your witness stand and state the your first and last names for the record.
Roger M. Martz, M-A-R-T-Z.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Mr. Martz.
Good morning.
Yeah, Mr. Martz, what is your occupation, sir?
I'm a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
And do you prefer being called Agent Martz or Mr. Martz?
Mr. Martz is fine.
Mr. Martz, a special agent for the FBI, the term special agent, does that have any particular meaning?
No, it's actually just a job title.
Okay. So all agents are special agents.
With the FBI, that's correct.
Now, what is your occupation, within the FBI, what is your occupation? What do you do?
I am presently assigned as the unit chief in charge of the chemistry toxicology unit at the FBI laboratory in Washington, D.C.
Could you please describe briefly your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree of science from the University of Cincinnati in Cincinnati, Ohio. I received that in 1974. After that, I joined the FBI and received extensive training with the FBI laboratory.
Do you, so you have a bachelor in science.
That's correct.
Do you have a master's degree?
No, I do not.
Do you have a PhD degree?
No, I do not.
Do you have any advanced degree whatsoever?
No, I had taken some advanced courses but never attained a degree.
Now, are you a member of the American Society for Mass Spectrometry?
No, I'm not.
What is that?
It's just an organization that a lot of people that perform mass spectrometry belong to.
Are you a member of the Canadian Society for Mass Spectrometry?
No, I'm not.
Are you a member of the American Chemical Society?
No, I'm not.
Are you a member of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences?
No, I'm not.
Are you a member of any professional organization that has as one of its principal subjects of interest mass spectrometry?
The one that I am is the Mid-Atlantic Association of Forensic Scientists, and a lot of the work that most forensic scientists perform is mass spectrometry.
Are you an officer with that organization?
No, I'm not.
Have you published any articles on the subject of mass spectrometry or chromatography?
I guess probably beginning in the early 1980s, I published numerous articles pertaining to mass spectrometry used in forensic science.
And do you have a list of those articles?
Not with me, no.
How many articles are there that you've published?
There's probably 4 that I've published over the years, and then there's 3 that are in print right now.
So 4 that have been published up to this point in time?
That's correct.
And you started doing mass spectrometry in what year?
1975.
Now, has your entire employment history been with the FBI?
Well, since 1974.
Since college?
Since I received my degree from college, yes.
And during that period of time, has it all been devoted to working with mass spectrometry?
Pretty much. After I joined the FBI, for the first 4 years, I was a chemist assigned to the FBI laboratory. When I initially joined the FBI, my aspirations were to become an agent with the FBI laboratory, or with the FBI. When I joined the FBI in 1974, I did not have the sufficient qualifications to become an agent. So I was assigned to the laboratory because I had a degree in science. After 4 years, I was qualified to at least take the test to determine whether or not I could become a special agent. I passed the test and became a special agent with the FBI in 1978. And I was assigned to the Chicago division. So for approximately 2 years, I spent investigating in the Chicago division. In 1980, I was then transferred back into the laboratory as an examiner in the FBI laboratory. For approximately the next 10 years, I was an examiner, assigned cases in the laboratory, and worked those cases. Approximately 1989, I was then promoted to the unit chief in charge of the chemistry toxicology unit, and I've held that title since then.
Mr. Martz, does the FBI work on cases for state prosecutors?
Yes, we do.
The FBI also handles federal cases for federal agencies, correct?
That's correct.
Does the FBI take defense cases from private defense attorneys?
There's exceptions to every rule, but my understanding will accept a case from any duly authorized government agency.
And that would not include defense attorneys, would it?
That would not, no.
Now, how many times have you testified as an expert in the field of toxicology?
In toxicology, I don't know specifically, but I've testified approximately 78 times in forensic chemistry, including toxicology.
Can you tell us for toxicology approximately how many times? Just give us a rough estimate.
Probably not very many, to be perfectly honest. I don't have the exact number.
Have you ever testified as an expert on the electrospray process?
I don't know that I understand that question. That's not generally what you ever testify to in court. You would testify to the identification. Electrospray is used in that identification. But to the process, I don't quite follow the question.
Okay. Electrospray is one step in a particular process to analyze the presence of chemicals in a substance. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's correct.
The times that you've testified in court, how many of those times have been for the prosecution and how many have been for the defense?
I believe, if memory serves me correctly, that I've only testified for the defense on one other occasion.
So it's unusual for you to be called by the defense?
It has been, yes.
Now, you're acquainted with Dr. Frederick Wieters, who was here in court yesterday?
Yes, I am.
And are you working on or consulting with him on some other criminal cases?
There are two other cases that we are communicating on.
And do those involve devising methods for detecting the presence of poisons in body tissue or in body tissue?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, could you tell us what is EDTA?
EDTA is a preservative, in this particular case, used to preserve blood. It has many other properties. I believe about 90 million pounds, the last time that I saw reference to it was 1975, 90 million.
Two purple top EDTA blood tubes.
Yeah, those are two purple top tubes that I received in the laboratory on February the 19th, I believe.
And you provided this picture to me, did you not?
That's correct.
Now, what's your understanding as to where those purple top EDTA tubes came from?
One came from O.J. Simpson and the other from Nicole Simpson.
And the one that came from Nicole Simpson, what's your understanding as to when that was collected?
I assume it was taken at autopsy.
After death.
Right.
Now, at some point in time, were you contacted by the Los Angeles County District Attorney regarding this case? Or representatives of the prosecution? In this
I was certainly contacted. I don't know exactly how it worked, whether they contacted me or they contacted me through Quantico, our research facility, but we did make contact at one point.
And about when did that occur? When was the first contact that they had with you?
With me, it's hard to say. I first did my test in February the 8th, so I certainly had contact before February the 8th.
Do you know whether have you been following this trial at all?
Working, you can't follow it very closely, but news at night, you certainly see it on the news and in the newspaper.
Do you know whether when the prosecutors contacted you, it was before or after the opening statement in this case?
When was the opening statement?
In late January?
I probably didn't become involved until after that. Whether the FBI was contacted before that on the EDT, I don't know, but I don't think I was contacted before that time period.
Now, once you were contacted, were you asked to perform certain tests?
Yes.
And what did they ask you to do?
They asked us to determine whether or not we could determine whether the blood stains, the two blood stains in question, originated from purple top test tubes or test tubes that were preserved with EDTA.
Well, do you have the letter with you that describes what it is they asked you to do?
I think I do have that letter.
Do you have it handy, or do you want me to give you a copy?
Well, if you can give me a copy, that would make it a lot easier.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Objection irrelevant. If I can close the court and see what I'm objecting.
All right, withdraw forward, please. Thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Mr. March, have you had a chance to read that paragraph?
Yes, I have.
And is that the paragraph that tells you what they want you to do?
Right.
And what does that tell you to do?
What, you want me to read it?
Well, can I put it on the Elmo?
Yeah.
Put on both pages.
Both pages. The last page.
That's fine. Proceed. Well, then you can do that on cross-examination, counsel. Back it out just a little bit, James. Thank you.
Now, Agent March, could you read that from there?
Would like you to test these items for the presence, absence of EDTA in order to refute the possibility that the stains on the sock, item 13, could have come from the cold reference sample, 59 or 72. Similarly, we would like you to test item 117 to refute the possibility that it could have come from Simpson's reference sample, number 17.
Now, actually, I'm going to show you the first page as well. Did you interpret, by the way, that request as a request to do some testing, and they wanted a particular result?
I didn't infer that, no.
Did you, when you approached the testing that you did you do it with an idea that you were trying to get one result as opposed to another result?
No.
Now, let me show you the first page of that letter. And could you read just the first sentence?
This letter is to describe the items we are sending to you in order to detect the presence or absence of EDTA in specific blood stains, which are of significance in this case.
Now, were you ever requested by the prosecution by way of this letter to try and quantify the amount of EDTA should you find it?
I didn't interpret it that way.
Mr. Martz, up to the time that you were contacted by the prosecutors in this case, had you ever worked in any manner or fashion with EDTA?
I've certainly worked with it, but I've never tried to analyze for it.
Had you ever been asked to determine whether it was present in blood or any other substance?
No.
Had you ever been ever attempted to design a test to extract EDTA from dried bloodstains?
No.
Now, is the technique that you used that we've been talking about yesterday, well, why don't you tell us what that technique is called?
Well, the technique that I primarily used was electrospray, tandem mass spectrometry.
And you used chromatography as well, didn't you?
Yes.
And what form of chromatography did you use?
I used liquid chromatography.
Are there other forms of chromatography?
The more conventional chromatography with mass spectrometry would be gas chromatography.
Now, did you hear yesterday Ms. Clark asking some questions about the effect or the relationship between electrospray and chromatography?
Yes.
Is it accurate that electrospray has nothing to do with chromatography?
Well, conventionally, you use chromatography with electrospray.
But does electrospray involved in the chromatography stage at all?
Well, it's a precursor to chromatography.
A precursor?
Right. That's the way that we do electrospray at the FBI laboratory with liquid chromatography.
That you do the electrospray before you do the chromatography?
No, the chromatography precedes the electrospray. They work in conjunction. You need, in order to do electrospray, you need a liquid. So to get the liquid, you use liquid chromatography.
Okay. But the method of chromatography, the electrospray happens after the chromatography is done, isn't that right?
That's correct.
Now, you used liquid chromatography. You indicated that gas chromatography is a more commonly used procedure.
That's correct.
And could you have done gas chromatography in this case?
Not without manipulating the chemical EDTA. EDTA will not work on the gas chromatography.
Do you know what the technique of derivatizing samples is?
Yes.
And is that the technique that you would use if you wanted to use gas chromatography?
It's a technique that could be used. I've not tried it with EDTA. I don't know how successful it is.
And would you agree that that form of chromatography is much better than the form that you used?
No, I would not agree with that.
Now, are you familiar with the method of liquid chromatography called gradient elution?
It sounds something familiar.
Have you ever used that?
Not per se.
Now, do you know whether that's a better chromatography procedure for what you were trying to do than what you did?
I wouldn't say that it was or wasn't, no.
Now, were you listening yesterday when there were questions being asked about the efficiency, if you will, of your chromatography method that you used?
Right.
And could you tell us whether your method does not effectively separate compounds by retention time?
It does not. The way that I used it is not very effective in separating compounds. I can give you an analogy. If everyone in here was to run a marathon, people would finish at different times. Very few people would finish at 2 hours. Some people may take 6 hours. Well, with the type of chromatography that I used, it would be more like a 50-yard dash. We would all run a 50-yard dash. We would all finish at about the same time.
Agent, the world's best is 206.
You're familiar with other methods of chromatography that work better than the one you used, aren't you?
My purpose in chromatography was not for identification. I did not even consider that in the identification of these compounds.
Yeah, I move to strike that answer as non-responsive.
Overruled.
Agent Marks, are you familiar with other techniques of chromatography that would provide better information in terms of separating compounds better than the one you used?
Yes, well, and I did use a better one on the 28th, which gave great separation for EDTA.
28th of February?
Yes, that's correct.
What was the difference in the method that you used from the 22nd to the 28th?
The one did not involve mass spectrometry. I was able to use a compound which is not very friendly to the electrospray.
Now, so the first step that you tried on February 22nd is where you tested for the first time under the method that we've been talking about, the Salk and the gate stains. Is that correct?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, the 19th I did a method of electrospray mass spectrometry.
All right, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That people have failed to mention so far.
Well, let's mention it. What method was that?
It was the same thing. It was electrospray mass spectrometry using LC.
But that was using what's called the negative ion mode, isn't that correct?
That is correct, which is
And-
more selective than the positive ion mode.
Did you find that that was much less sensitive than the positive ion mode?
It was less sensitive.
About how many orders of magnitude?
It was approximately 10 times less sensitive.
So it was after you used that method that was 10 times less sensitive that you used the positive ion mode that we've been talking about that's more sensitive, correct?
In this particular case, it ended up being more sensitive, yes.
You knew at the time that you did the negative ion mode, once you saw the results, that it was not particularly sensitive test, is that correct?
It certainly, I would agree with that. It was not that sensitive of a test.
So is it fair to say that you decided you needed to do something a little bit more sensitive?
No, that is not fair to say at all.
Okay. But you did.
I did, yes.
Now, if the method that you chose for the liquid chromatography was not particularly good, what was the purpose of doing it?
Well, I have a very expensive instrumentation that has unique capabilities. One of those is to separate out by masses. This is a tandem mass spectrometer. I can get much better separation using the mass spectrometer than I can the chromatography. And I elected to use the chromatography for the introduction of the sample to the mass spectrometer, or the first quadruple.
Can you introduce samples directly into the mass spec?
Yes, you can.
Now, let me ask you again, was there a reason why you used the chromatography stage if you didn't really need to and it wasn't a particularly good method?
I didn't say I didn't need to in this particular case. With EDTA, it is needed in order for it to ionize. Otherwise, it would have to be derivatized. You cannot do direct injection of EDTA through solid probe, or you cannot do it through GCMS. The technique that I had available was the LCMS using electrospray.
How much time did you spend designing the method that you were going to use in this case?
That's difficult to determine. I mean, it includes 20 years experience that I have with mass spectrometry, knowing all the things about the instruments, what's available, what will work, what won't work. It would be very difficult to put a time on how long it took to develop this procedure because it encompasses 20 years of experience or 18 years of experience with the instrumental technique. The actual hours performing the EDTA analysis was probably in the order of maybe a week would be a good estimation.
And you had never done this kind of work before with EDTA, had you?
No, I had never analyzed for EDTA in the past.
And when you were requested to do this testing for the district attorney, was it your understanding that you had to develop a method that would work?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say develop a method. The method is already developed for the identification using electrospray. All I had to do was identify a different chemical. There's no really method development.
So you spent about a week doing that?
In order to get a procedure that was sensitive enough, in order to distinguish between blood that was preserved with EDTA and blood that wasn't.
By the way, is the method that you used, any of the methods that you used, quantitative methods?
I did not specifically use these methods to quantitate the amount of EDTA present.
So the purpose of the test, the way you set it up, is it fair to say that what you were trying to do is just determine is EDTA there or isn't?
No, I was trying to determine whether or not the stain came from EDTA preserved blood.
And the method you chose was a method that would identify it but not quantify it. Is that accurate?
That would easily distinguish between whether or not it was preserved or non-preserved.
Was your method designed to determine whether it was there or not, as opposed to telling you how much was there?
No, my method was designed to determine whether or not it was preserved blood with EDTA.
Mark, let me show you first chromatograms 1262A and 1262B. Do you recognize those?
Yes, I do.
What are they?
These were 50 part per million standards that I had run of EDTA on, I don't see the date here, but was this on the 22nd?
Check. I believe that was 22nd.
Okay.
And we have slide 1257T, please. Or, I'm sorry, V. Mr. Martz,
Yes.
would you look at the chart, please, and tell me if that accurately charts the ion count that you got for 50 parts per million on 2 separate runs on February 22nd?
No, I don't believe that it does.
What's inaccurate about it?
Well, I think a more accurate representation of ion count would be the area and not the peak height.
Does your electrospray method result in ionization that wildly or fluctuates to a large extent from one test to the next?
I think it would depend on what adjective did you use?
I said wildly, but I'll say to large extremes.
It would depend on your definition of large extremes. It will fluctuate.
So, as I understand your testimony, you think that my chart is misleading because I have it based on ion counts?
Well, you have it based on the peak height and not the peak area. The
Okay.
area would be a better depiction of the ion count.
Okay. And is it misleading that way?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to prove. If you want to say that the instrument fluctuates, you wouldn't use the peak height, you'd use the peak area because it's a better representation of the total ion count.
But looking at the peak height also demonstrates that it fluctuates quite a bit.
It fluctuates quite a bit in peak height, yes.
And would it be unusual, as we have here, a 7-fold difference looking at the same thing, the same day?
It depends. From injection to an injection, it would be somewhat unusual. But at the beginning of the day versus the end of the day, it may not be that unexpected. And again, if you really want a true depiction of the fluctuation, you would want to look at the peak area, not the peak height. And the areas...
Does the peak height, in your opinion, bear any relationship to the quantity of EDTA that you're looking at?
Not a very good one.
Okay. Let me show you Peoples number 541. Have you seen that chart before?
Yes, I have.
Did you make it?
Yes, I did.
We put this on the yellow, please. Now, Agent Martz, this is a chart that you prepared, correct?
That's correct.
And it's a chart based on ion count, isn't it?
It's based on the peak area, as I mentioned, that you should have done.
Look on the left side of that. Can you see what the scale says?
Right.
What does it say?
Ion count. It's in peak area, which is the better way to depict the ion count.
Why is it labeled ion count if it's peak area?
It's the ion count of the peak, the whole peak.
Okay. Do you agree that if you look at area or ion peak, your method of electrophorese causes, you would expect that it would cause substantial variation from one test to the next, or could? That's not unusual, is it?
It can happen.
Let me show you Defense 1259B and 1259A. Has to be recognized those.
Yes, those are runs that I had done on my question 206.
And Q206 was what?
I believe that was the sock.
We have slide. P, please. Agent March, would you look at the monitor and tell us if that appears to be not to scale, but an accurate depiction of where you got Q206 from?
That's correct.
And you actually had the sock itself?
Yes, I did.
And when you got the sock, was the green area indicated on the chart already cut out?
Yes, it was.
And you then took a cutting from the edge area of the stain?
That's correct.
Now, you were also sent another swatch inside a little aliquot tube, were you not?
That's correct.
And is that what you call Q207?
Yes.
You never ran a test on that in the positive ion mode, the mode we've been talking about, for Q207, did you?
I don't believe I did. I only ran that on the first day.
And Q207, so is it fair to say you made no estimate on Q207 as to how much blood might be on that?
By looking at it, it appeared that it was covered with blood, but how much, other than it was covered, I don't know.
Now, why didn't you test Q207, which was from the large stain, in the positive ion mode?
What? Because I had tested it on the negative ion mode.
You remember when we talked in Washington about a week and a half ago?
Yeah.
And you recall my asking you about Q207? About why you didn't test it?
I can't remember, to be perfectly honest with you.
You remember telling me that you didn't know what Q207 was?
I did mention I didn't know what Q207 was at the time, yes.
Okay. All right, may I have a photograph marked?
Yes. I'm sorry, 1263.
1263. Mr. Mike, could you take a look at 1263 and tell me if that's a picture of Q207?
Yes, that's correct.
was marked on the record case. All right, 1263 will be the letter, 1264 will be photograph of Q207, 1263. What's the date on the letter, counsel?
Jude, thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you, thank you.
Agent March, is that a picture of what was sent to you, Q207?
That's correct.
And you now know that that came from the stain area that had been cut out of the sock.
Yes.
Once you found out what that was, did you ever request to have it sent back so that you could run tests, positive ion tests on that?
No.
We have 1257R. Agent Martz, is the chart that's now on the screen an accurate depiction of the two tests that you ran on Q206, the stain from the cutting from the edge of the stain?
Two of the tests that I ran, yes.
And do you agree that the peaks demonstrated on the chart were peaks that you found in your testing?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, would you agree that you detected the presence of the 293 parent ion, which is the parent ion for EDTA?
I detected the 160 ion, which came from the parent ion of 293.
Well, isn't it true that the machine is set so that it only lets through the 293 parent ion?
That's correct.
So is it accurate to say that you can conclude from that chart that you have found both the 293 parent ion and the 160 daughter ion?
That's correct.
Now, Agent Marks, would you agree that the pattern that you got on the sock, Q206, is consistent with the presence of EDTA?
It certainly warrants further testing. It responded like EDTA responded, yes.
Is it consistent with the presence of EDTA?
Yes.
No party with me in the room. No sirree. I don't approve. Unless there's sparkling apple cider.
Let me show you 1259C.
And snacks. And when I say snacks, I don't mean nuts and cheese. I mean pizza and subs
Yeah, can you
and
tell us what that is,
spaghetti
please?
and lasagna and
That's a
soup.
the daughter
Snacks.
ion spectrum or chromatogram that I had run for Q206.
And let's put that on the envelope. When you run the full daughter, what is it that you're looking for?
Well, in this particular case, I'm looking for the 160 to be the base peak, the 293 to be the second largest peak, and the 132 ion to be about a third the size of the parent ion. So I'm looking for 3 ions in certain ratios.
Okay, and one of those is the 132, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you've already detected the 160 and the parent ion in this sample, have you not?
Yes, I have.
Now, what is the range that you scanned in looking for the 132 daughter ion with this chart?
In this particular experiment, I set up scanning mass 130 to mass 295.
Now, were you following the analogy that we were talking about yesterday of a TV camera panning back and forth?
Do I understand that analogy? Or?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that a fair analogy?
Sure. Yes.
And would you agree that if you scan from 130 to what did you say?
295.
To 295, you're looking for a lot of things other than 132?
That's correct.
And would you agree also that under that particular method, if 132 is there, you're not going to be looking at it very much at all?
Well, it's relative. I mean, every 1.5 seconds, I'm looking at it for a considerable amount of time. It's all relative.
Do you know what selected reaction monitoring is?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That's where you look for one ion coming from another ion.
And is that more sensitive than the technique you used?
It was similar to the first technique that I had used. It's certainly more sensitive than this technique that I used for the confirmation.
Now, When you were looking for the 160 daughter ion, the scans that you did were generally from what range to what range?
I generally scan on two masses either side, 158 and 162.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Now, is it your
hungry.
experience that your machine drifts that much, so that you need to have that wide a range?
Oh, no, that's not the purpose for that at all.
Okay.
Every now and then you'll have what's called a dynamic mass spectrum where everything comes out and you'll get every ion. So to avoid the possibility of a misinterpretation, I scan on either side to ensure that the mass that comes out is the mass that I'm looking for. In other words, if mass 160 came out along with every other mass, I wouldn't be able to distinguish that it was the 160 only. I'm very interested in detecting 160 and no other ions. So I always scan on either side to ensure that a mistake is not made.
And would you agree that you wind up with lower peaks than if you were scanning just at 160 and it happened to be at 160 where it's supposed to be?
Yes.
So that particular method that you used, you sacrifice peak height for a little bit more range that you look at to make sure that you're not making a mistake.
Well, for specificity, you want to be correct.
Okay. And now selected reaction monitoring is where you just look at 160.
Right.
Now, of those three methods, the full daughter that we had on the chart, scanning a range to either side of 132, or selected reaction monitoring, that is looking just at 132, which is the least likely to find 132?
The full scan.
Now, when you decided that you wanted to determine whether the 132 was present in what you found from the blood on the back on the sock, why did you pick the method that was the least likely to find it?
Because it is the most, or the best way to positively identify a chemical. You've got to remember here, you don't want to misidentify a chemical. If I identify something, I want to identify it to the exclusion of all other chemicals. And for me to do that, I have to do this experiment.
Were you interested in finding out whether the 132 was present?
Of course I was.
And of the three methods we described, you used the one that was least likely to find that, correct?
I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, my purpose was to identify a chemical, and this is the only means that I had to identify that chemical, and that is why I selected that particular. It had nothing to do with sensitivity. This is what I need to do to identify a chemical.
When you say that's the only means you had to identify the 132 ion?
To identify EDTA.
Okay. Was that the only method you had to identify the 132 ion that you knew would be there if it was EDTA?
Could you repeat that question?
I'm not sure I can.
Was this the only method that you had to identify the 132 ion that you knew
that was
would be
it.
there?
There's many methods to identify a 132 ion. This is certainly not the only way to identify 132 ion. I agree with that.
Did you ever run a scan that looked two sides, either from 130 to 134, to try and find the 132 daughter ion?
No.
Did you ever use selected reaction monitoring to look just at the 132 to see how much might be there?
No.
Now let me show you 1260A and 1260B. Here, 1260A and 1260B. Ask if you tell us what those are.
Those were analysis that I had done from the stain from the gate, MyQ 204.
And using the positive ion mode that we've been talking about, you looked at that twice.
That's correct.
As your understanding, this stain came from a blood stain found on the back gate in Nicole Brown Simpson's condominium,
That's correct.
and numbered 117.
Yes.
We have 1257T. Agent March, would you agree that the chart on the screen accurately portrays the two tests, the two positive ion tests that you did of the stain, the blood from the stain from the back gate?
Yes.
And would you agree that you identified peaks in those two charts?
I don't know if the words identified peaks. I found two
You found,
peaks.
okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, the retention time on these two charts and the retention time on the soft charts, are they consistent also with EDTA?
Yes.
Now, would you agree that the two charts that are up on the screen from the gate demonstrate the presence of the 293 parent ion and the 160 daughter ion?
Yes.
Would you agree that those charts, what you found in those charts is consistent with the presence of EDTA?
Yes.
Did you ever, in these two samples, look for the 132 daughter ion using a scan of 130 to 134?
No.
Did you ever, with these two samples, look for the daughter ion by doing selected reaction monitoring, that is, looking just at 132?
No.
Now, can we go back to the Alamo and I'd like to mark another picture?
1265. This is a photo of what, Mr. Blazier?
This photo of the sock.
Thank you.
Mark, let me show you what's been marked 1265, defense exhibit, and could you tell us what that is?
That's a picture I took of the sock when I received it in the laboratory.
And can we put this on the Alamo, please?
Yes.
If I have to see this sock one more time, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. We've had enough of the sock.
Mark, can you look at your monitor there? Is that an accurate picture of the sock after you did your cutting?
Yes.
Now, it's a little difficult to see on the big screen, but could you direct the arrow to the part that you cut out yourself?
Down. A little bit more right there. Right there.
Now, that's what you called Q206, correct?
That's correct.
And the hole there is where Q207 came from, is that right?
Yes.
Did you examine the sock to determine the outer edge of the blood stain that had been in that area?
Yes.
And did your cutting there go past the outer edge?
Not to my knowledge.
So it's your understanding or your recollection that the blood stain came out further than the edge of your cutting?
Yes.
Go back to 1257P. P again. Now, is this what you were just describing, is the cutout on the sock that you made,
Yes.
except turned upside down?
Right.
Now, did you do any testing at all to determine whether there was more blood in Q207 or less blood than there was in Q206?
No.
Is it accurate, Agent March, that, let's assume hypothetically, that Q207 had more blood in it than Q206? You have that in mind? Would you agree that if that stain had been made with EDTA blood, that you would likely find more of it in Q207 than Q206 if Q207 had more blood in it?
Sustained.
Well, when you're trying to detect EDTA, would you agree that the amount you're likely to detect, if it's there, is going to be dependent on how much you start with in your testing?
Yes.
And if you start with less blood that has EDTA in it, would you agree that you're likely to find, or have a lower likelihood of finding EDTA than if you had a larger quantity of blood with EDTA in it?
Well, certainly it would depend on the size we're talking about. If we're talking very small differences, you may or may not, but if we're talking large differences, then you will find differences.
Did you do any testing whatsoever to determine whether the amounts of blood in the sock, let me rephrase that. Did you do any testing to determine whether the concentration of blood in that large stain varied from the outer edge to the center?
Well, I didn't even have the center, so it would have been a difficult test to determine.
Well, you had Q207, didn't you?
Right, but that still isn't the center.
If you'd wanted to, you could have extracted the blood from Q207 and compared it to Q206, couldn't you?
I saw no reason to, but I certainly could have done it.
The reason that you didn't do that is because you didn't know what Q207 was?
207, I didn't know exactly what it was. That's why the first day I combined 207 and 206 and treated them as the same. Because I didn't know the origin of 207.
Now, Agent March, do you agree that in order for EDTA to be detected in your method, it must be water soluble?
Yes.
In other words, a compound that might have the same molecular weight and the same daughter ions as EDTA, if it wasn't water soluble, you wouldn't be able to measure it under your system.
Well, it depends, too. I mean, when you're talking about parts per million, parts per billion, in literature, a lot of times they'll report things as not soluble in water, yet in reality, you can identify those in trace quantities. It would depend on the individual chemical.
But it would have to be water soluble, wouldn't it?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, when you're talking about parts per billion or million, and you're talking about a complex mixture, we have put in solution things that literature says are not soluble in water and identified them. I mean,
There's a lot of things that aren't soluble in water, too.
well, but when they say soluble in water, they're not referring to, parts per million, parts per billion generally. But,
there are a lot of things, I'm sorry.
There's a lot of things that are listed as not soluble in water that will dissolve partially in water.
Now, would you agree also that for a compound to have the characteristics of EDTA that you found, it would also have to be heat stable?
I don't know. It depends on your definition of heat stable.
Do you know what that term means?
Well, yeah, but what heat are we talking about? Are we talking about 100 degrees, 500 degrees, 1,000 degrees? I mean, that's a broad term.
Must the chemical that you're looking at, in order it to go through your system, be soluble in the specific mobile phase, that is, the liquid that you use to send it through the column?
It certainly helps.
Now, have you run tests on any other compound other than EDTA that gives you the results you got in this case for the gate and the sock, namely the retention time that you got, the presence of the parent ion, the presence of the daughter ion?
I ran no other chemicals with this testing.
Have you ever tested, in the course of your 17 years experience with mass spectrometry, any chemical that has those characteristics other than EDTA?
I don't know right offhand.
Do you know of any that you've run that have those characteristics?
I don't think that I have.
Now, you have in the, I think yesterday, been attempting to find some compounds that might look like this?
Well, I've been attempting to locate other chemicals that could possibly give similar results, yes.
Okay. And you handed me a picture of a chemical this morning.
That's correct.
Let me have this marked next.
I'm questioning my decisions. I'm showing this right now.
1266. Yes.
Let me show you 1266. Is that a chart that you handed me this morning?
Yes, it is.
And what's that for?
It's a mass spectrum of a chemical.
What's it called?
Benfurulin.
Do you have any idea what it is?
I believe it's an environmental contaminant.
Do you know?
That's what I was told on the phone this morning. I don't have any other knowledge other than that.
Do you know where it's found?
Evidently in the environment.
Do you know where in the environment?
Why don't you spell it for the court board?
Benfluralin.
You know where in the environment?
No.
And what's the parent ion for that compound?
335.
Now, you haven't tested that compound to see if it looks like EDTA, have you?
Today's the first time I've seen this chemical.
Okay. And the mass spec that was generated there was done with a different method from your electrospray, correct?
That's correct.
And what method was used with that mass spec?
This was the standard electron impact ionization.
Do you have any way of knowing without testing whether if you had run the same tests on that, whatever it is, that you'd get the same pattern as EDTA?
I have no way of knowing other than testing. The purpose for this chemical is it had some properties similar to EDTA.
The answer
in its mass
is
spectrum,
yes,
but the only way
Michael.
to prove whether or not it would give the
They're
same
gonna
results
prove
or not
that.
would be to actually analyze the chemical.
Once you got the results that you got in this case in February, did you make any effort to find some compound other than EDTA that would account for what you found on the back gate and the socks?
No.
The testimony yesterday about the EPA documents that were presented by Ms. Clark to Dr. Reeders.
Yes, that's correct.
He can't,
Show you-
Maria,
all right, People's 537.
but he can sing them, I bet.
Is that the reference that you're thinking of?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, that's not an article, is it?
No.
It's a description of what? Of an article.
Yes, that's correct.
And where did that article appear?
In the Veterinarian Journal, I believe.
Now, I'm sorry, which,
The,
do you know which journal?
It's Brit, so I don't know if it's the British or the Britain, but vet is evidently veterinarian, and J is obviously journal.
Did you recall yesterday Ms. Clark asking Dr. Reeders questions about that document as it relates to the maximum daily allowance of EDTA?
I don't know if it necessarily had to do with maximum daily allowance or what you would expect to find in a person. I think it was more relating to how much you would expect to find in a person's blood.
Does that abstract indicate that you would expect to find 2,000 parts per million in anybody's blood?
No.
And
It states that it should not exceed 2,000 parts per million.
what's the concentration of EDTA in a purple top tube?
Somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 parts per million.
Would you agree that if someone had 2,000 parts per million EDTA in their blood, they'd be dead?
Well, for any sustained period of time, I think they use it also for transfusions. I don't know the exact amount that they use. It would not be a good idea, I don't think, to have that amount in your blood. I agree with that.
Does that number bear any relationship at all to what the FDA allows in terms of EDTA as a food additive?
No, no, I don't believe it does.
Is your understanding that that particular study was a study on fish,
That's correct.
and it was to determine the toxic level that would kill fish?
No, I did some further research, and actually, the whole reference has to do with how much EDTA is used to preserve blood. It has absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with how much you would expect to find in fish or humans. It was completely out of context.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you about EDTA that you might expect in your blood from food. And you provided us several articles that you found related to that topic, have you not?
Right.
Let me show you an article. We had this marked. I'm sorry, 1260. 1267. Okay. Let me show you 1267. You recall Ms. Clark yesterday mentioning the figures of 50 milligrams per day as a possible amount of EDTA that someone might take into their system.
Yes, that's correct.
And is that the article that came from?
Yes.
Why don't you just give us the name of that article?
It's the food iron absorption in man, the effects of EDTA on absorption of dietary non-heme iron.
Now, you also were shown yesterday some excerpts from the Code of Federal Regulations. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Could we, I don't have the exhibit number on this one, Your Honor. Show you people 539. Take a look at that again. Is that the document that describes what the FDA says is the allowable maximum amounts of EDTA in food preservatives or food substances?
That's correct.
And I'd like to put that on the yellow again. Now, this is a document that you provided to us as well, is it not?
That's correct.
Now, is your understanding that the 50 milligram per day figure that is in that article that you provided to us was based on what the FDA says are the maximum levels of EDTA you can put in food?
I'd say that had most of the basis for it, yes.
Now, could we move that up just a little bit, Mr. Harris? Now, this regulation talks about parts per million, 220 parts per million, 33 parts per million. That bears no relationship to parts per million in blood, does it?
No.
That's what you can put in the food
Yes.
that then gets eaten and
Right.
greatly diluted.
Yes. Yes.
Now, you also provided us a study from 1954 concerning the metabolism of EDTA in humans, correct?
I don't think it primarily dealt with metabolism. It was an article about EDTA being injected in humans. I think they did mention it was not metabolized, but I don't think that was the purpose of the article.
Okay, but this was an article that you provided to us.
Right, yes.
And an article that you relied upon in forming your opinions in this case?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. It's an article that you reviewed and we've discussed, haven't
It's
we?
an article. I reviewed many articles on EDTA. That was one of them.
Now, what is your understanding as to the body of literature on EDTA, such as it is, in terms of how much EDTA that you eat in food actually gets into your blood?
I'm in, Bobby. If they give me
it's
salt,
unclear. The best is the paper there from
maybe ketchup.
1954, but even in that paper, it mentions some data which is conflicting.
If you
and
tell
there
me
hasn't been a whole lot of
EDTA
data
is a
since then. Most of
snack,
the other
I'm
papers,
in.
even today, refer
I
back
want
to
that.
that paper in 1954. I believe that it's not well known.
Well, what does this paper say?
In that one, the absorption,
Yes.
it says 5% is absorbed.
And there's other literature that says that as well, correct?
Well, I think all the other literature is based on that, to my knowledge.
Well,
There's no other independent study that I could find.
what is you provided us some other literature that says the same thing, didn't
Yes,
you?
yes. I mean, it was mentioned in a lot of articles that that was the absorption. I agree with that.
Did you provide us with some excerpts from a textbook called The Pharmacological Basis of Therapeutics by Goodman and Gilmans?
Yes.
And is that an accepted text in the field of pharmacology?
Yes.
And what does that indicate in terms of the absorption of EDTA that you take in by mouth into the blood?
I assume it says 5%.
Okay. Now, would you like to look at that to
No,
confirm? it?
I'm sure it says 5%.
Now, when we talk about absorption into the blood, when you eat something, it doesn't just go into the blood, does it?
No, no.
What happens to it in the stomach in terms of how it gets to the blood versus how it gets excreted in other ways?
Well, we're trailing a little bit out of my field, but certainly in order to survive, things have to be absorbed into the bloodstream. If you eat everything and nothing gets absorbed, you're going to die.
Now, the the 54 study indicates that the vast majority, 90% or more of the EDTA that you might eat gets excreted through the feces and never gets to the blood, correct?
That's what that one paper showed, yes.
And when we talk about a 5% absorption rate, we're talking about of the, let's say, the 50 milligrams that a person might eat in a day, only 5% of that actually gets into the blood at some point.
Yeah, approximately 2.5 milligrams, according to that paper.
Now, that paper also talks about when it gets into the bloodstream, that it also gets into other extracellular fluid, in other words, other fluid in the body, correct?
Right, correct.
And the total volume, approximately, of this other fluid in the body is what?
Well, I think the paper there may have used 40 liters. It would depend, of course, on the size of the individual, so that would be probably an average.
Now, would you agree that it's a relatively easy calculation to figure out? If you had 2.5 milligrams in 40 liters, how many parts per million billion, or whatever that is?
Right, yeah.
And what is that figure,
I believe, was it 60 parts per billion?
approximately?
Approximately 60 parts per billion.
We're talking in the range of parts per billion rather than parts per million, correct?
According to that study, yes.
Now, under that set of conditions that I just described to you, that assumes, does it not, that whatever gets absorbed into the blood is all there at the time that you take the measurement?
That's correct.
Now, what does the literature indicate in terms of how quickly EDTA that does get into the bloodstream gets out of the bloodstream?
Well, its half-life is very short. It leaves the bloodstream very quickly, according to that paper.
And are we talking in terms of minutes or hours?
I think it was hours.
Would you like to look at that article to refresh your memory? One hour, yes.
Okay. Let's look at half-life to be
You
an
can
hour.
look away.
And by half-life, does that mean that once this,
I know.
let's say 60
I
parts per
don't know
billion
because I
gets in
can't
there-
remember the word, but you guys will help me get there. I know who they're going to call next. A statistician. It starts with an A. They count numbers. They count numbers for life insurance companies. Like when you're going to die. It starts with an A. It's the most boring job in the entire world. And it's right on the tip of my tongue, and I cannot. That's who they're going to call next. One of those. I'm sure it starts with an A. Oh, I can't believe I forgot this word, but that's who they're going to call next. One of those. For 3 weeks. No, I'm joking because they won't, but feels like it. No.
your system, 1 hour later, there's only going to be half as much.
That's correct.
And 1 hour after that, there's going to be half again as much.
Yes,
So that it's quickly, very quickly eliminated from the system.
that's correct. That's according to that paper in 1954.
Now, would you agree that under those circumstances that we've described, that's consistent with the literature, that the amount of EDTA that you might expect to find in a person's blood after they ate something with EDTA in it is likely to be very, very small in the range of parts per billion?
Well, I think if you take everything into account, it'd be difficult to say that. I mean, you're looking at one study in 1954, and it mentions at the end of that there's some conflicting data based on iron and yttrium being eliminated very quickly from the body when it's ingested, when EDTA is ingested. And that paper only mentions one of the salts that the FDA permits to be used in the food. There's two other salts. So relying totally on one paper in 1954 with a lot of other conflicting information and information that's not available, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't believe that anyone knows exactly how much EDTA is present.
Well, when you say a lot of conflicting information, what conflicting information are you talking about?
Well, conflicting information with iron studies, the fact that it indicates that more is absorbed than the 5%.
What paper says that?
This particular paper here, the last
Yeah.
paragraph,
You have that in front
second
of
last
you?
paragraph.
You have that in front
No,
of you?
you took it back from me, I think.
Actuary. I Googled it. Actuary.
Is that what you're referring to? The,
Right, yes, exactly. Would you like me to read it?
Let me put on the Elmo, then you can
Okay.
read it.
Their job is so boring we can't even remember the title to it.
Now, the paragraph you're referring to is the one that has the little asterisk in front of it, correct?
That's correct.
And why don't you read that to us?
The low absorption after oral administration is very surprising in view of the findings that material... The low absorption after oral administration is very surprising in view of the finding that the material is effective by that route in accelerating the excretion of yttrium and lead. There is no satisfactory, readily apparent explanation at the present time, right this present time.
Now, would you
I just gave you straight up ASMR here. You guys don't appreciate nothing.
agree that what that says is that EDTA is able to help remove yttrium and lead from the blood very quickly?
That's, well, yes.
Okay, and that's another indication. Is that a fair characterization, what I just said?
I don't know. I wasn't paying
I
attention.
don't agree with you 100% on that.
Okay, but there's no data there, is there?
No.
And that doesn't say that EDTA is absorbed more than 5% in the blood, does it?
Well, it kind of implies that to me.
No, it doesn't say that, does it?
It doesn't say that.
What it says is it's very effective at getting things out of the blood quickly.
And the only way to get something out of the blood is to get in the blood, first of all.
Okay. And then get out of it quickly.
Right, because it's a chelating agent. Once it gets in the blood, it chelates, or gets in the body, and then it will go and be excreted.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our mid-morning recess at this time. These are all my admonitions to you. We'll be in recess for 15 minutes, and Agent Mark, you can sit down for the back.
Maybe we'll get a new witness after the break. Maybe. Nope. No. Doesn't look like it, guys. I'm just going to scroll down. He's definitely here 2 days from now. And that's as far as I know.
Thank you, Your Honor. Agent Martz, at the break, did I ask you to take a look at those two 50 parts per million charts to compare
1 day
the
from now.
areas
Tomorrow we'll
Yes.
see
that you
him.
indicated?
Right, that's correct.
And what's the difference in the areas of the two 50 parts per million charts that you ran on the 22nd?
It's about a fourfold difference.
Okay. And you agree that the 50 parts per million, you knew that that's exactly what it was because you had prepared known EDTA in that concentration to put in your machine.
That's correct.
And when you put it through the second time and got a fourfold difference in your area output, it was still the same 50 parts per million.
Yes.
Now, would you agree that the substance that you found that had the consistent retention time, the parent ion and the daughter ion, that in your opinion the quantities that you found are in the parts per million range?
That would be the most, yes.
Okay. Which is, correct me if I'm wrong, 1,000 times more than the parts per billion range.
That's correct.
Now, I want to ask you some questions about the technique that you used at the beginning of your testing. You have that in mind?
Yes.
When you got the stains in this case, when you got Q206 and Q207, actually you assigned those numbers, didn't you?
Well, they were actually signed by Special Agent Doug Diedrich.
Okay, but I mean that's an FBI number, not an LAPD number.
Right, that's correct.
When you got those samples, did I hear you say this morning that you mixed those two together for your first series of tests?
Yes, that's correct.
And you did not know what Q207 was?
Well, I knew it was from the sock, and obviously it was blood stained, but I didn't specifically know that it was cut out of that area. I mean, it was logical to assume that, but I didn't know that for a fact.
So you, as part of the first steps of your test, combined two unknown samples, the source of which you didn't know?
Well, I knew they were both from the sock, and I knew they were both blood stains from the sock, and my object was to determine whether or not there was EDTA present on the sock. So I combined the two to see whether or not EDTA was present on either of those particular cuttings. And I took that into account by using twice as much of that particular sample as I did from the control that I prepared.
So you used twice as much in that run, and that was using the negative ion mode that we talked about a little bit this morning,
That's correct.
the less sensitive testing.
The one that's much
Love
more
you.
specific, in this
See
particular
you.
case it was less sensitive, but you got to remember here, it had a lot more specificity, and that's why I used it to begin with. Negative ion mass spec is a very sensitive technique, and in order to identify the EDTA present, it has to react with iron. EDTA is a chelating agent, so I wanted to use a very specific test, and that's why I chose that test on that day, because I not only had to have a compound with a particular molecular weight, it had to react with iron in order to give these results. And the only ones that gave results on that particular day were the controls that I prepared.
Now, but you determined yourself by your own experimentation that that was 1/10 as sensitive as the positive ion mode that we've been talking about.
It had less sensitivity, but sensitivity was not my problem. what I was asked to do was determine whether or not the stains were EDTA preserved or not preserved. I was able to answer that question in the negative ion mode very easily. These stains were not from preserved blood.
Well, we'll talk about that. But when you ran the positive ion mode the next day, the test that will detect the ions more sensitively than the one you did the day before. Will you agree with that?
It was more sensitive, but sensitivity was not an issue. Specificity was my issue. I wanted to determine whether or not EDTA was present, and if it was, I wanted to make sure I could identify it. And as I mentioned, it was not present.
So you weren't concerned with whether it was there or not when you did the negative ion mode?
No, I was asked to determine whether or not EDTA was present. It was very easy to do in the negative ion mode. I was able to determine on the first day that EDTA was not present on those particular stains, and those stains
Cream
did
chip
not come
beef on
from preserved
toast.
blood.
Were you
Shit
able
on
to determine with the
shingles.
negative ion mode that there wasn't EDTA on those stains?
There was not EDTA present in the amount that you would find in preserved blood.
Agent-
I proved that on the first day.
Agent Marks, please listen to my question. Were you able to determine with the negative ion mode that there was no EDTA on those stains?
I was not able to identify any EDTA on those stains.
Were you able to rule out the possibility that there was EDTA on those stains with your negative ion mode?
Yes, in my opinion, EDTA was not present on those stains.
All right, when you did your testing the next day with the positive ion mode and found what looks like EDTA, where do you think it came from?
Well, you got to remember here, everyone's saying that I found EDTA. I've never said that, and I don't believe Dr. Reeder's ever said that. There was indication that EDTA could have been present. There's a lot of other explanations for the ions that I got on the first day. I am not convinced that EDTA is present on that sock, and I want to make that perfectly clear. There are many possibilities for those ion counts that I got. One is it could be from another compound that had similar results. That's why I performed the daughter ion experiment, to determine whether or not EDTA was present. I was convinced that EDTA was not present in those samples.
So you had made up your mind as to what you were going to find before you did the test.
That is not correct.
Okay.
I was asked to determine whether or not those blood stains came from preserved blood, and those blood stains did not come from preserved blood. I was able to prove that on the first day.
What you saw in that blood stain, both blood stains, the second day, you didn't see the first day, did you?
No, it's a completely different technique. As I mentioned, in the negative ion mode, the EDTA must react with iron.
Agent Marks?
The second day when I ran the test, all I was looking for was a 293 ion and a 162. Iron was not a factor. So the possibility
Hold on.
exists.
Agent?
Hold on. Next question.
Did you add anything to the samples from day 1 to day 2?
Yes.
Did you add EDTA?
No, I added water.
Does water give you a pattern like EDTA?
As I told you, I did not identify EDTA in any of the samples on any day.
All right, let's talk in terms of the 293 parent ion, which EDTA has, and the 160 daughter ion, which EDTA has. Do you have that in mind?
Yes.
Did you add anything that had a parent ion of 293 and a daughter ion of 160 between day 1 and day 2?
Well, I mean, I don't quite understand that question. Of course I didn't, but the fact of the matter is on the first day I didn't even look for those ions.
All right, move to strike everything except, of course, I didn't.
Sustained. Answer stricken as being non-responsive.
Now, are you saying that that 293 parent ion and the 160 daughter ion weren't there the first day?
I didn't look for them the first day.
Then you don't know whether they were there or not, do you?
Well, it's difficult to determine if I didn't look for them.
Second day you found them, didn't you?
The second day,
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Did you find them the second day?
I detected both ion 162 and 293 on the second day because the experiment I performed looked for those various ions.
Now, let me ask you this. Is your reason for saying that what you found, even though it has consistent retention time, consistent parent ion, consistent daughter ion, that the reason you're unwilling to say that that's EDTA is because you couldn't find the 132 daughter ion?
No, I didn't say that at all. The reason I'm saying that it's not EDTA is several-fold. I conducted many experiments over several days. The first day I looked for EDTA in the negative ion mode. It was not present. On another day, the 28th, I looked for EDTA on another test in HPLC, which was completely different testing than any of the other days. And EDTA was not present on the sock or on the gauge. So I have two tests that show no EDTA is present. I have another test on another day which has ions that are similar or the same as EDTA. In order for me to identify EDTA, I have to have what's called a full daughter spectrum. When you just look at several ions, you can make mistakes. Those mistakes have been made, and because mistakes like that have been made, procedures have been changed. In order for me to positively identify a chemical to the exclusion of all others, I need to have a full daughter spectrum. And in order to do that, I have to set the scan, the instrument, the way that I did. I was not able to identify EDTA in those particular stains.
Agent Marks, you agree that you did detect at the appropriate retention time the 293 parent ion, the 160 daughter ion on day 2.
Well, you're making a great deal of the retention time.
Your Honor, move to strike.
Sustained.
You found that, didn't you? The 293, the 160 at the appropriate retention time.
That's correct.
Have you identified anything other than EDTA?
Oral. Oral.
Have you determined any compound, have you located or identified any compound other than EDTA that accounts for your findings?
I was just faxed another copy of another chromatogram that could possibly give similar results that I just got several minutes ago.
Okay. Do you know what that is?
Yes, I can get it for you if you'd like.
What is it?
I can't stop right now. I gotta see what's going on.
It's a steroid-type chemical. It's right there.
And what method was used to perform this chromatography or mass spec?
Well, that particular chromatography was probably gas chromatography, and the mass spec type was electron impact.
So that's a different method also, isn't it?
Well, but
Agent Martz, is that a different method?
well, no, because mass spectrometry is a technique that I use for the identification, and that is mass spectrometry. And you can make certain assumptions in mass spectrometry when you're dealing with ions. We're dealing with 2 ions here. That is not very many. This particular compound and many other compounds will have those 2 ions.
When you found what you did find, whether it's EDTA or something that just looks like EDTA, did you advise the prosecution of what you had found?
I had prepared a report, yes.
And by the way, in your report, well, let me rephrase that. How soon after you got the charts that we've seen here with the peaks at the appropriate times, parent and daughter ion, did you tell the prosecution that you had found that?
I believe it was sometime at the end of February, early March. I don't have the exact date.
Did they ever ask you to try and find what that might be other than EDTA?
No. I mean, it was not necessary because I had already answered the question, the fact that those stains did not come from preserved blood. There was no reason to try to determine what those ions came from.
But from February until this morning or last night, you haven't tried to find a compound that explains your findings, have you?
Well, I have because I believe that my data has been misinterpreted by somebody else, and I wanted to prove that.
Now, I want to ask you some questions about your, incidentally, you said that you used twice as much on day 1 of the Q206, Q207 mixture than you used the next day?
That's correct.
So you used half as much sample when you used the more sensitive test?
Well, in every case that I did this,
Yeah, move to strike as non-responsive.
Sustain.
You used half as much with the more sensitive test.
I used half as much of the 206 versus 207 on the 22nd as I did on the 19th.
Would you agree that if there had been EDTA in your mixture of Q206 and Q207, there'd be 1/2 as much in the test that you ran the next day, the more sensitive test?
Not necessarily. I mean, as we've mentioned, the quantitation is not perfect on that instrument, and I did not design this technique to precisely quantitate how much EDTA was present, or if it wasn't present. I was trying to determine whether it was there or not from preserved blood. So twice as much would not make that much of a difference in the results that I got.
Did you run any experiments with different amounts? Well, let me rephrase that. Would you agree that in order to make any kind of an assessment of concentration of how much you get at the end of the process, you have to know how much you start with?
Sure, yes.
Now, the evidence that you received, let's talk about the back gate first. That was in the form of what?
It was blood that was... I had asked how large the blood stain was, and I was told that it was larger than the cotton swab.
How large what blood stain was?
On the gate.
Did you ever ask how much of that blood stain had been removed and put on whatever you got it on?
No.
Now, did you get it on a swab or on a swatch?
It was a very small swatch.
Did you ever ask how many other swatches had been made from that blood drop?
No, I did not. I didn't feel it was necessary. When I looked at that blood swatch, I could see that it was thoroughly saturated with blood, and that was my concern.
Do you have a spectrophotometer in your lab?
Yes.
Is that an acceptable means of determining how much you might have of blood in a solution?
Well, it's an acceptable mean, I think, of determining how much hemoglobin is present, and from that you could possibly calculate how much blood was present.
Did you use any method at all other than just looking at it to try and tell how much blood was in the swatch?
Yes.
What?
I did a visual examination also of the extract after I extracted the blood with the water, and I got a very intense red color, which indicated to me that it was concentrated blood.
Okay, I gotta stop now. I gotta get to work soon, so I have to get some stuff done before work. And this guy's gonna go on for a while, and I want to know what he says, but we have to wait. Because this video it just switched over to is 2 hours long and he's on the stand. So, we're going to stop now. We will, yeah, exactly. Nan, you're exactly right. And he's stupid. But, he makes a lot of money. Anyway, I will see you all again very soon. I hope you guys have a great day. And don't eat any more EDTA today. Bobby, you had enough. Bye, guys.